Hi again then guys, and welcome to episode 15 of Tour of Japan, the review series for, of course, the JGTC cars that are featured in the lineup of Gran Turismo 6. And in this episode we're featuring one of the NSX models. This is one of the newer shape machines. It's a 2008 model NSX. This is a premium car. It is of course GT500 class, and it is the Team Epson NSX. Now, most if not all of the NSXs are powered by very similar spec engines. It's a 3.5 litre that puts out 895 horsepower fully tuned. That means that this is not the most powerful of the JGTC NSXs. It is, however, very powerful and in particular very torquey. This does actually have one of the highest torque outputs of any of the NSX JGTC spec machines at 666 pound-feet. It's among the slightly heavier of JGTC models at 1,150 kilos, so still not heavy, but around 50 kilos heavier than some of the Supras or some of the other NSXs, for instance. The PP is a reasonable 653, not as high as, say, a Lexus SC430, but higher than some of the Supras or some of the other NSXs, so pretty well placed PP-wise. And the power-to-weight ratio per tonne is a pretty decent, but not necessarily class-leading 778. And overall, this car is a very good car, I would say. Now, it's a premium model, which means that the visual and mechanical physics are slightly more updated than the non-premium models. That's not always a good thing, but it's a fact. Now, in terms of performance, it's a pretty strong all-round car. Performance is well over 230 under its own power, so among the quicker of JGTC cars. Not necessarily the fastest, but among the quicker spec models. The acceleration is very good, as you'd expect from a JGTC machine, and the handling on this one is actually one of the better ones, I would say, of the NSX machines. Because as I've mentioned in episodes featuring the NSX before, and as I undoubtedly will in the future again, the NSX is known among JGTC drivers as being one of the slightly more tricky handling cars to get the best out of. It's certainly a hugely competitive car, but more for the professional driver rather than the newbie who's looking to get into JGTC. Unless, of course, you fancy the top-level challenge, that is. And then it's definitely a car that I would recommend for a less experienced driver. It's a very good-looking machine overall. Obviously, that has little effect, if any, on its racing success. Although it is my personal belief that if you like the look of your car, you will drive it better. I may well be wrong, but I know that's true for me personally. And overall, as I said, it's a very good JGTC model. Now, I say that about quite a few models, but the reason for that is because, really, among JGTC cars, more so arguably than almost any other class of racing, apart from perhaps Formula 1 or NASCAR, the difference between teams and between cars in terms of actual lap times are so finite that of course they're all going to be good. If there's any car that isn't good, it would immediately fall behind, and that's not the case. I believe in some years on certain tracks, on more than one occasion, the JGTC has seen it as being not uncommon to have an entire grid of cars qualifying within the same couple of seconds, if not less. You hardly ever see that in the Formula 1, not to that level of closeness between all of the cars and all of the drivers, especially considering the F1 cars are much more closely linked in terms of their mechanicals than JGTC cars are. JGTC does leave room for personal variation between teams and even between different versions of the same car. Some teams fit their engines lower, some fit them in a completely different place entirely, and that does mean that each car, although only slight, does have differences. And the Epson has, I would say, a number of slight differences. There's nothing majorly different with this car compared to, say, some of the other premium NSXs, but the finite differences can be noticed if you compare it to the driving style of some of the other premium and non-premium NSX JGTC cars. Overall, it's expensive at $950,000, not as much as a HSV10, but more than, say, a Supra or a Skyline. But if you're looking for a strong all-round machine with good straight-line performance for acceleration, mid-range acceleration, low-end acceleration, and top speed, and handling, it's a good choice. And the NSX over the years has proven itself as being a highly competitive JGTC car, and it's no different on the game. It's a great machine, but as I said, you do need to bear in mind as a potential buyer that if you're slightly less experienced, and that's nothing to be embarrassed about, but if you are slightly less experienced, be aware that the NSX is one of the slightly more challenging handling JGTC models. So that's it for this review. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.